Welcome to the Empower L podcast. I'm your host, Vero, and I'm so excited to have you join me on this journey of empowerment and growth. This podcast is designed for ambitious, high-achieving women who are ready to break free from overwhelm and step into their power. Together, we'll explore practical strategies, share inspiring stories, and hear from experts who can help you navigate the challenges of balancing ambition and well-being. Whether you're looking to cultivate confidence, transform your mindset, enhance your leadership skills, or find harmony in your life, this is the place for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Empower L podcast. I'm so glad that you're here to learn about something that could shift the way you lead and live. Today's conversation is all about burnout, and more specifically, why burnout doesn't happen overnight. So take a deep breath and let's dive in. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have about burnout is that it arrives suddenly. We picture it as a dramatic event. One day you're fine, and the next day you're crying in your car before work. Or you can't get out of bed. Or your doctor tells you that you need stress leave. Or you completely lose motivation for the career that you once loved. From the outside, it looks sudden. But burnout is almost never sudden. It's slow, quiet, and sneaky. It's built one small decision at a time, one ignored need at a time, and one I'll rest later at a time. And because it happens so gradually, we don't often realize what's happening until we're already running on empty. I know so many ambitious women who tell me, I don't understand. I used to handle so much. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel lazy. I've lost my drive. No, you didn't lose your drive. You spent months or years borrowing energy from tomorrow. And eventually, tomorrow arrived, and there was nothing left to borrow. Think about your phone battery. If it drops from 100% to 98%, you don't panic. Then it drops to 95%. Still fine. 88%, no big deal. 74%, you're still using it. 52%, you're probably not worried. And then it suddenly hits 8%. And now you're scrambling for a charger. The battery didn't suddenly die. It had been draining the entire day. And burnout works exactly the same way. The problem is that most of us only pay attention once we're at 8%. But what if we started noticing ourselves at 74% or 52%? Imagine how different your life would feel if you didn't wait until everything felt impossible before taking care of yourself. I think ambitious women are especially vulnerable to burnout. Not because we're weak, because we're capable, we're dependable, we're responsible. We're the ones who can figure it out, the ones who stay late, the ones who remember everyone's birthdays, the ones who organize the family vacation, the ones who volunteer, the ones who mentor the new employee, the ones who answer emails on vacation because it's just easier. The ones who say, it's okay, I'll do it. And here's what nobody tells us. the more capable you are, the more people give you. Sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you volunteer, and sometimes you don't even notice you're volunteering. It becomes automatic. And before long, your calendar is completely full of things that prove you're capable. But almost none of them are actually filling you back up. I once heard someone say, the reward for good work is more work. And I remember laughing because it felt so true. You become efficient, so people rely on you more. You become organized, so everyone asks you to organize things. You solve problems, so every problem somehow becomes yours. Being competent is a gift until it becomes your identity. Because then, saying no feels like you're no longer the dependable person that everyone expects. So instead, you carry more, you absorb more, you fix more. And little by little, your nervous system starts paying the price. Burnout rarely starts with exhaustion. I think it starts with small betrayals. Every time you ignore what your body is telling you. Every time you're hungry but finish one more task. Every time you're exhausted but open your laptop anyway. Every time you need a break but tell yourself, after this meeting, after this deadline, after this launch, after summer, after Christmas, after quarter end, there's always an after. But somehow, after never comes. Instead, another project appears, another responsibility, another opportunity, another emergency. And because you survived the last season, you convince yourself that you can survive another one. Until eventually, surviving becomes your normal. And living becomes something you'll do later. I want you to ask yourself something. When was the last time your body whispered to you and you actually listened? Not screamed, but whispered. Maybe it was, I'm tired. My shoulders are tight. I've had a headache all week. I haven't laughed in days. I'm snapping at everyone. I don't even enjoy the things I used to love. Those aren't random inconveniences. Those are messages. Your body whispers long before it screams. The problem is, we're often so busy trying to be productive that we stopped becoming fluent in our own body. We know our team's workload. We know our children's schedule. We know everyone's coffee order. But ask us how we're actually feeling, and most of us don't know. Not because we don't care, because we've stopped checking in. One of the hardest truths I had to learn was this. Ignoring your needs doesn't make them disappear. It just delays the consequences. Your sleep debt doesn't disappear. Your stress doesn't disappear. Your emotions don't disappear. Your body keeps the score. And eventually, it asks for repayment with interest. And that is often when women tell me, I don't even recognize myself anymore. And the truth is, you didn't wake up like this. You've been arriving here for a very long time. And one of the reasons that burnout is so difficult to recognize is because our culture rewards the exact behaviors that lead us there. Think about it. The person who answers email at 10 p.m. gets praised for being dedicated. The leader who never takes vacation is seen as committed. The mom who somehow volunteers for everything is admired. The friend who always shows up, no matter how exhausted she is considered dependable. We celebrate availability. We celebrate busyness. We celebrate doing it all. But very rarely do we celebrate someone who says, you know what, I'm at capacity, or I'm going to protect my energy this week, or I'm not the right person for this. Somehow, we've turned boundaries into something selfish, when in reality, they're one of the most responsible things we can practice. Because the version of you that has healthy boundaries is the version that can actually keep showing up over the long term. I always think about athletes. Olympic athletes don't train at maximum intensity every single day. Professional teams don't play championship games 7 days a week. Even elite performers build recovery into the plan. Recovery isn't something they earn after performing. Recovery is part of the performance. Yet somewhere along the way, ambitious women decided that we should be able to perform like elite athletes without sleeping like one, without recovering like one, without fueling ourselves like one, without protecting our energy like one. We expect championship level performance from ourselves while treating ourselves like machines. And then we're shocked when our bodies stop cooperating. I remember talking to a woman who told me, I just need to push through this month. And I asked her how many months she'd been saying that. She laughed. Then she stopped laughing because the answer was almost 2 years. Maybe you've said something similar. I'll slow down after this project, after the kids go back to school, after year end, after this launch, after this promotion. But the finish line keeps moving. And not because life is trying to trick us, but because life will always give us another reason to stay busy. There will always be another opportunity, another deadline, another event, another season. And if you're waiting for life to calm down before you take care of yourself, you might be waiting forever. Which means that protecting your energy can't be something you do when life gets quiet. It has to become something you do while life is busy. And that's the difference. One of the biggest mindset shifts I want you to make is this. Stop thinking about burnout as something you avoid, and start thinking about it as something you actively build or actively prevent. Every decision matters. Every yes, every no, every late night, every skipped lunch, every weekend you never disconnect, every morning you ignore the knot in your stomach, every evening you tell yourself, I'll deal with it tomorrow. They're all tiny votes. And not just for the life you're living today, but for the life you'll be living 6 months from now. Burnout isn't created in one catastrophic moment. It's built through repeated patterns, which is actually good news. Because if patterns create burnout, patterns can also create resilience. So let's talk about some of the early warning signs that don't get enough attention. Not the obvious ones, the subtle ones. Maybe you stop feeling excited about things you normally enjoy. Maybe your patience gets shorter. You're irritated by little things that never used to bother you. You start procrastinating, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is overloaded. You forget simple things. You reread the same email 3 times. You walk into a room and completely forget why you're there. You feel busy all day, but somehow nothing meaningful gets done. You stop calling your friends back. You stop exercising, not because you don't care, but because it feels impossible. You eat standing up. You scroll because your brain can't handle another decision. These aren't personality flaws. They're often signs that your system is asking for relief. And instead of criticizing yourself, what if you got curious? Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Ask, what is my body trying to tell me? That's a different conversation. One leads to shame, and the other leads to awareness. And awareness is always the first step toward change. And one thing I've learned in both my corporate career and through Empower L is that high performers are often the last people to notice they're burning out. Why? Because they're used to pushing through discomfort. They've built entire careers on resilience, on grit, on figuring it out. And those are incredible qualities until they become the reason you ignore yourself. Resilience without self-awareness becomes self-neglect. Replay that again. Or if you're driving, just let it sink in. Resilience is a beautiful strength. But resilience isn't supposed to mean enduring everything without checking in with yourself. Real resilience is knowing when to push and knowing when to pause. It's knowing that resting isn't quitting. It's maintenance. Just like you wouldn't wait until your car engine explodes before getting an oil change, why do we wait until our bodies force us to stop before we finally listen? I think one of the saddest things about burnout is that it slowly disconnects us from ourselves. You stop asking, what do I need? And you start asking, what does everyone else need from me? You stop making decisions based on your values, and you start making them based on urgency. You stop living intentionally, and you start living reactively. And eventually, you're moving so fast that every day feels like you're putting out fires. And then one day, someone asks, what do you do for fun? And you honestly don't know anymore. Not because you've changed, but because you've slowly lost touch with yourself. And that's one of the hidden costs of burnout. It doesn't just steal your energy. It steals your presence, your joy, your creativity, your ability to notice the life you're working so hard to build. And that's a price that's simply too high. So if burnout doesn't happen overnight, neither does recovery. And I know that might not be the answer you want to hear, because when we finally hit the wall, we want the fix to be quick. We think, maybe I just need a vacation. Maybe I need to sleep all weekend. Maybe I just need a massage. Now, don't get me wrong, those things can absolutely help. But if your daily life is what's creating burnout, a weekend away can't permanently solve it. It's like trying to empty a bathtub while the faucet is still running. Eventually the water comes right back. Recovery isn't about escaping your life. It's about changing the way you move through it. And I want to be really clear about something. This isn't an episode about doing less. I think that's where a lot of women get stuck. Because the second we hear someone talk about burnout, we assume the advice is going to be quit your job, say no to everything, slow down. That's what I thought the advice was. But that's not realistic for most of us. Many of you listening have careers that you love. You're building businesses. You're leading teams. You're raising children. You're caring for aging parents. You have goals that genuinely matter to you. Now, the answer isn't to stop being ambitious. The answer is to stop carrying your ambition in a way that's hurting you. And those are two very different things. Because I don't want you to become smaller. I want you to become more sustainable. I want your success to actually feel good, not just look good from the outside. One question that I regularly ask myself is, what is making today heavier than it needs to be? Not, why is my life so overwhelming? That's too big, too vague. Instead, what's making today heavy? Sometimes it's a meeting I should have delegated. Sometimes it's the 10 open tabs on my computer. Sometimes it's a conversation I've been avoiding. Sometimes it's the mental load of trying to remember everything instead of writing it down. Sometimes it's my perfectionism. Sometimes it's my own expectations. But what's interesting is that it's often not the amount of work that it is exhausting us. It's the way we're carrying it. Imagine carrying 5 grocery bags. Now imagine, when you carry those bags and they're cutting into your hands because you're refusing to make 2 trips. Now the weight didn't change, but how you carried it did. I think so many ambitious women are trying to carry every grocery bag in one trip. Not because they have to, because somewhere along the way, they decided that asking for help or making 2 trips meant they weren't capable. So burnout isn't just about workload. It's about emotional load. It's about decision fatigue. It's about invisible labor. It's about constantly anticipating everyone else's needs. It's about carrying conversations in your head that haven't even happened yet. It's about worrying, planning, remembering, managing, holding everything together. And here's the tricky part. No one else can always see that load, which means that from the outside, people might think you're doing great. You're smiling, you're productive, you're showing up. Meanwhile, inside your head, it feels like you have 42 browser tabs open. And one of them is playing music, but you have no idea which one. That's what mental overload feels like. And because it's invisible, we often dismiss it. We tell ourselves, other people have it harder. I should be able to handle this. It's not that bad. But your nervous system doesn't compare. It simply responds. One practice that has completely changed the way that I think about burnout is doing regular check-ins before I need them. Not after, before. Think about how often you check the gas gauge in your car. You don't wait until the engine shuts off on the highway. You glance at it regularly because it's information, not judgment. So what if you treated yourself the same way? A few times a week, ask yourself, how's my energy today? What feels easy? What feels heavier than usual? What do I need more of? What do I need less of? Not because you're trying to be perfect, because you're paying attention. And self-awareness is one of the greatest forms of self-care. Not bubble baths, not candles. Those things are lovely. But self-awareness is what tells you whether you need the bubble bath or whether you actually need to cancel the meeting. There's a difference. I also think we need to stop treating rest like it's something we have to earn. How many times have you caught yourself saying, once I finish this, once I get caught up, once everything is done? Can I lovingly remind you of something? Everything is never done. There will always be another email, another load of laundry, another meeting, another idea, another deadline. If rest only comes after everything is finished, you'll never rest. What if rest became part of your strategy instead of your reward? Not because you're lazy, because you're wise enough to know that your energy is one of your greatest assets. We protect our phones with cases. We protect our houses with insurance. We protect our investments. But how often do we intentionally protect our energy? The thing that allows us to show up for every single part of our lives. It's probably the most valuable resource we have. And often, it's the one we neglect the most. If there's one thing I hope that you take away from today's conversation, it's this. Burnout doesn't begin the day you can't get out of bed. It begins the first time you convince yourself that your needs can wait. And the second time. And the third. And the 100th. Where recovery begins the exact same way. With one different decision. One boundary. One honest conversation. One earlier bedtime. One walk outside. One delegated task. One deep breath before saying yes. One moment where you choose to listen instead of push through. Those tiny decisions probably won't change your life tomorrow, but over time, they change everything. Because burnout is built one choice at a time, and so is a life that feels aligned, energized, and sustainable. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode gave you permission to pay attention before your body is forced to demand it. You don't have to wait until you're completely exhausted to deserve rest. You don't have to earn the right to take care of yourself. And you certainly don't have to sacrifice your well-being to prove you're successful. So keep choosing yourself, your vision, and your values. That is real power. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into the Empower Elle podcast. I hope today's episode inspired you and gave you practical insights to help you navigate your journey as an ambitious, high-achieving woman. Remember, every step you take towards building your confidence and embracing your full potential is a step closer to creating the life you truly desire. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their power and live their best lives. Don't forget to join our community on social media for more resources, tips, and inspiration. Until next time, lead with power and live with wellness. You are unstoppable.